use all the time is on the first grade curriculum. And one of the questions was to point out ancient Mesopotamia on a map or a globe and discuss the contributions that ancient Mesopotamia has made on modern day civilization. They're 6 years old, okay? At that age, you just trying to get them to write from left to right. You're trying to get them to form sentences. The curriculum is not developmentally appropriate. And the state, they just keep banging their head against the wall to get to the other side where there's a door available to them. So I mean, we've been pushing this issue, and I don't understand why the other side of the aisle doesn't get it. I don't get why the chairwoman of the Education Committee doesn't get it. There are so many problems with education right now, and there are so many things we have to fix, but this is a starting point. And again, I want to thank Assemblyman Robb for his leadership. He's been an outstanding leader on this issue, and it was truly a privilege to travel the state with him and to get all this information. So again, I just want to thank Ed, and understand there were 30,000 letters written to the governor on the website begging him to stop abusing these kids. And you can see from the budget, he didn't listen. So with that, I'll turn it back to Joe.
Thank you, Al. Our next speaker brings much to the table from educational experience. He was the president of one of Long Island's school boards, longtime assembly member, a man with a lot of understanding of the finance involved and why this is such an unfunded mandate, and that is North Shore Assemblyman Michael Montesano.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to Ed Robb, to Al Graff for the work they've done on this. This is an interesting situation. The race to the top money was nothing but a carrot and stick approach to entice the state of New York to introduce the Common Core. So for $700 million, very little of it that came out to the Long Island or upstate school districts, but went into New York City, gave nothing to the districts. Some districts got $10,000, and they had to spend $150,000 for implementation of this curriculum, which, as you heard this morning, is very much flawed. And the stalemate is with the governor. The governor refuses to budge in this issue. We want a moratorium on the testing, which this bill would provide for, and he doesn't want to do that. We need corrections as far as evaluations for the teachers based on this curriculum. He refuses to do that. And it's because the state took this money that it really didn't need to finance this program, which is defective on its face. So what we're asking for is for the moratorium to take effect, for this legislation to pass. It has tremendous support in both houses, but we believe it's being held up at the direction of the governor because he doesn't want this to go through, because he's afraid of jeopardizing federal funds. There may have to be a reimbursement to the federal government of unused funds and any future funding that may come through. But this is not a question of money when it comes to the education and needs of our children. We're damaging our children for the sake of getting federal money, and that's not what this should be about. The governor should be an advocate for the children the way he said he would be. So again, I thank the members of my conference for their support today, and again, I thank my colleagues Ed Robb and Al Graff for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Montesano. Our next speaker is an assemblyman who also brings quite a bit of experience to the New York State Assembly and to this issue. He's a longtime member of the Education Committee in the Assembly. He's done a wonderful job protecting children from predators, from bullying, and has led the way on so many issues related to education and related to safe schools. He represents a district on the South Shore of Nassau County, Assemblyman David McDonough.
Thank you, Joe. You've already heard from my colleagues a lot of the problems. I'd like to boil it down to one of the biggest problems. The goal of Common Core is not that bad, to raise the educational standards, to bring everybody up to the same level, no matter what part of the state or the country they're in. The problem is that when they developed this, they left one person or one group out of the development stage. They never asked the educators, the teachers, the principals, the superintendents, what's the best way to do this? Had they done that, I'm sure, and I know this from all of our meetings that we've had with teachers and educators across the state, they would have said, yes, we can do it, but we know how to do it in our classroom. You've already heard my colleagues talk about special needs children, children in special education programs that were put through this when they weren't ready for it. And somebody, I think Mike Montesano just mentioned, the damage that has been done. If we corrected everything that we are pushing for right now in Common Core, it still would take a couple of years to reverse the damage that's been done to some of these children. Many children, a neighbor of mine who has a 5th grade student, and she is an 8th grade teacher herself, said that he was doing so well in school, he loved it so, and then the test came along, and he came home and he said, I don't want to go to school anymore. 5th grade, I don't want to go. She made him go to school, but after a while she had to take him out. She put him in a private school, it cost her $7,500, and now he's doing great. But this is what's happened all over, not just in this area, Nassau, Suffolk, and Long Island, but it's happened all over the state, and it's happening all over the country. And as you've heard from my colleagues already, the governor has just turned a blind eye to this whole subject. It could be fixed. It could be stopped, as we're recommending, reevaluated and restarted. The implementation of this was a disaster, and the effects of it are being felt all throughout. We've held hearings all over the state, and we've learned from all of them, and there's not one positive comment that we've heard from thousands of people who attended those hearings. So we still call in this 1 week left to get a groundswell going to say, let's do this bill, AAE 44. Let's do it and repair this and start over. Thank you very much. Joe?
Thank you, David McDonough. Our next speaker is an assemblyman also with a tremendous amount of experience in the New York State Assembly. He has school-aged children, and he probably hears more about this issue on a nightly basis than the rest of us combined because his wife is a teacher. He's our floor leader, so he understands the frustration of trying to get such an important bill to the floor without much success. This is the #1 reason we're reaching out to the public, to get the groundswell behind us, to let the public know what we're trying to do, and he certainly understands that. And that person is our Assembly floor leader, Assemblyman Tom McKevitt.
Thank you, Joe. As Joe had mentioned, actually, I have a first grader who's going through school right now. And it's interesting, I thought I had at least till 5th or 6th grade, so I wouldn't be able to understand my child's homework. I can't understand first grade math, and I'm not kidding about that. It is very, very different from what any of us have seen before. Multiple choice tests with different concepts for a first grader. And I'll have to say, my son's doing quite well in it, and I think because he has the advantage that that's all he knows, starting off very early on. The problem that happened with the Common Core is that we had many students who were taught in the middle of their educational curriculum. The information didn't get to the teachers quickly enough for them to be able to adequately prepare. And even those you talk to in the educational profession who say there may be some virtues to Common Core, I think everyone's in agreement. The way that the New York State Education Department implemented it was nothing short of a disaster. And what the legislation that both Ed and Al have been trying to do throughout the state is try to put it in perspective. Yes, we are always for increasing standards, better concepts, making our students more competitive for the world, but at what price? And again, I think the way that it was rushed into effect, again, the state did not do their job correctly. That's what's causing a lot of the angst and a lot of the worries. And I have gotten on this issue almost more phone calls, emails, and parents in tears than almost anything else in the last few years because it is truly putting a lot of children at risk. So again, I think from our perspective, let's slow this down, let's stop this testing, let's evaluate the right way, and let true educators instead of bureaucrats administer the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom McKevitt. Our next speaker is not new to the New York State Assembly. He's one of the senior members in our conference from Suffolk County. He understands the financial issues that have become such an impediment to taxpayers and to keeping schools going strong. So therefore he understands all of the financial repercussions that the Common Core has placed on school districts. He's an important member of our team, pushing with us and one of the sponsors of this legislation. From Suffolk County, from the Smithtown area, Assemblyman Michael Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. Some of us remember a number of years ago there was a very influential report issued called The Nation at Risk. And it was a wake-up call to the U.S. education system that we needed to put more rigor in the classroom, that we needed to elevate our game, so to speak, to compete in a new globalized economy. That spawned efforts at the national level, like No Child Left Behind, and now Common Core. A very influential book was written back in 2005 called The World is Flat by Tom Friedman, who was a very influential columnist at the New York Times. It was a wonderful read, and Mr. Friedman said he wrote it because he wanted to issue a wake-up call to the American education system, that we are no longer competing only with ourselves, New York students versus Connecticut or New Jersey students, that we were competing around the globe, and that technology through the internet particularly was flattening the world. And in recent comments made by Mr. Friedman, he said, average is over. And what he means by that is, in today's economy, in today's world, you can no longer be average academically and expect to live a middle-class lifestyle here in the United States. So, No Child Left Behind, Common Core are worthy efforts, but the rollout has been abysmal here in New York State. As my colleague mentioned, dangling the carrot of the $700 million, in my opinion, caused a lot of this problem. That drive for the money. I speak to a number of teachers. I speak to teachers, not the teachers union, but teachers, and they will echo many of the sentiments that my colleagues have said today, have mentioned today. The Apple plan is an appropriate response to the problems we're having with the rollout of the Common Core. I support it, and I believe that if we believe that we are 50 sovereign states in this country and that each state is a laboratory for democracy, and I firmly believe that, then the states themselves are